indeed, the same Constitution, Article 67, enjoins the outgoing president to present the state of the nation to this parliament before leaving office. And His Excellency came here on 3rd January and presented his state of the economy before he left. Mr. Speaker, President Mahama did not indulge in lamentation. And in any case, Mr. Speaker, if President Mahama lamented, I would choose lamentation any day over lies and policy deception. I would choose lamentation any day over lies and policy deception. And Mr. Speaker, I hold in my hand the State of the Nation address delivered to this August House on Tuesday, 9th March 2021 by President Akufo-Addo. And Mr. Speaker, on page 26 of this address, and with your leave, I shall read. It says in paragraph 4 that, and I quote, "What's that of Yeji? Whilst that of Yeji, Makango, and Agodeke is 46% complete. In total, 7 landing ports have been constructed in this country." Mr. Speaker, I sat in the chamber and I wondered whether I was indeed the member of parliament for Salaga South constituency, where Makango is situated. I hadn't seen any port being constructed in Makango. I made a call to Salaga and I asked my boys, go to Makango and find out whether there's any construction going on, a port construction. And there was zero. Mr. Speaker, that amounted to policy deception. And I would choose lamentation any day over policy deception. Mr. Speaker, I filed a question to the Transport Minister and to ask why they captured in the State of the Nation address that the Makango port was 46% complete. The minister came to the House and gave his response, but the minister did one thing, and I respect the minister for that. When I challenged his response, he sent a team from the Transport Ministry to Makango, and there was nothing. Mr. Speaker, this is policy deception. And so if we lament, we are telling Ghanaians what the situation is. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I want my colleagues on the other side to know that they labor in vain. They labor in vain, and I'll urge them to go and read Modern Ghana, a news report on Modern Ghana, Friday, 7th February, March 20. And the report, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, simply credits Professor Stephen Adai, a staunch and senior member of the New Patriotic Party. And this is what Professor Stephen Adai has to say. And I quote, "President Mahama is the first after Nkrumah to do very well in his first 100 days. Professor Stephen Adai says, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, "President Mahama is the first after Nkrumah to do very well in his first 100 days in power." I urge my colleagues to go and read this report. Mr. Speaker, when we are members of parliament, and Mr. Speaker, I don't want to believe that there is any member of parliament in this chamber who doesn't know what 24 hours mean. I don't know. I don't think there is anyone here who doesn't know what economy means. So when His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama says he's introducing the 24-hour economy, I urge them to just join the two words, and the meaning is clear. Everybody knows what 24-hour economy means. Mr. Speaker, I said earlier on that I will rather lament than lie. President Akufo-Addo, in this House, on 3rd January, told this August House that the free SHS policy had benefited 5.1 million students. Mr. Speaker, information by EduWatch, by the Ministry of Education, says that it's only 3.4 million who have benefited. President Mahama will not indulge in telling lies. So where we stand, Mr. Speaker, is 3.4 million students who have benefited from the free SHS. Another lie, Mr. Speaker, that we will not indulge in. Agenda 111. When the president comes here...
Honorable member, hold on. Who is lying? Is President Mahama or who?
President Akufo-Addo.
Please,
He's a liar.
Honorable,
he lied to this House.
Honorable
this
Ibrahim, please, let's. He's a former president. Please, use another word instead of lie, please.
Falsehood. He engaged in falsehood.
Honorable, are you listening to me?
Yeah, I'm listening to him, Mr.
Please,
Speaker.
I'm saying use another word instead of lie.
Falsehood. He peddled falsehood. And the falsehood was that 3 of the Agenda 111 hospitals had been completed. Even my colleague here, when he debated, only mentioned 1, which is not in use. And that is exactly what President Mahama said.
Your time is up anyway.
He said only 1 has been completed.
Your time is up anyway. Thank you very much. Thank you.
When he came to the House, all we heard him say was lamentation, lamentation, lamentation. But this was not new. This is how we've known the president to be. In 2013, he was in this House to deliver to us a message on the state of the nation. Even when he was part of the very government he had succeeded, and just for the avoidance of doubt, between 2009 to 2012, he was a vice president. When Professor Mills left, he succeeded him. Yet when he won the 2012 elections and he came into this House, he came here to lament about the state of the economy, forgetting that he was part of the government for the 4 years preceding his new administration. Then in 2016, when he again came here to address this House, he repeated the same lamentation, blaming everybody except himself. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, when we had the financial sector crisis, the president came to address this House, and he came here to apportion blames. He said the Bank of Ghana had failed in its supervisory functions. If you are the chief executive of the land, you are in charge of appointing the governor of the central bank. You are responsible for appointing the members of the board of the central bank. And people are losing their investments. All you come to Parliament to say is, it is a Bank of Ghana that has failed. That is how come President John Dramani Mahama could not solve the banking sector crisis in 2015-2016. Those who lost their investment through DKM and God is Love and all other microfinance companies were left to steam in their own stew. Mr. Speaker, the president was here in 2016 to tell us that if those people had chosen to go to microfinance firms and they've lost investment, the government was not going to take responsibility. The NDC members of this House should go and refer to the State of the Nation address of 2016. They will find it there. That is how bad it was. That the president was in charge of the economy, but blaming others for the failures of the economy. So we were not surprised that he came here and continued with his usual lamentation upon lamentation. And today, the Member of Parliament for Salaga South, a respected member of this House, continues to say that indeed they are right in lamenting. This is not new. It is your posture. That is your attitude to talk governance, to lament. But what the president failed to do was to acknowledge that the Dumso legacy was resolved when Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo took office. What the president failed to tell Ghanaians was that the banking sector crisis, which he blamed Bank of Ghana for, was resolved by the Akufo-Addo government. What the president failed to tell Ghanaians, that in spite of all the crisis, NPP managed to introduce the free SHS policy and sustain it for 8 years. So why the mischief? Why the deceit? These were monies that they had come to meet, so they should not deceive Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, the youth employment policy. It was during Kufuor's era that the youth employment policy was given life. And an enactment came before this House to establish the agency. And when the agency came into being, many of our youth on the streets gained employment. The NDC came into office for 8 years. There was nothing for the youth to look up to. They couldn't sustain it. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo came into office and introduced additional policies to create space for a lot of our youths. The records are there. They have now come in. The very infrastructure that they came to meet is what they are relying on. Nothing new. Yet they condemn the Akufo-Addo administration. They claim that after elections, you don't need to make appointments. May I remind the president? May I remind our colleague Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, who in 2016 was all over saying that a government's term ends the day it hands over to a new government. Therefore, they were right in appointing a Shraj boss. They were right in appointing an Auditor General. They were right in appointing an NCCE chairperson. Have they forgotten the inconsistencies of their own principles will continue to haunt them? Mr. Speaker, We in the NPP believe that in the minimum, we laid a solid foundation amidst all the economic turbulence. And we handed over a nation peaceful, with the borders secured, to the John Dramani Mahama administration. It is for them to hold onto these and make it even better. So far, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that they have nothing useful to add. It's so clear that they have nothing useful to add. All we hear these days is political persecution in the guise of political accountability. Is that what we voted for them for? When the president was here, he reduced the SONA into going into gallery, saying that some people are running away from the jurisdiction and saying all manner of things. That is not what we expected of him. But in the coming days, we shall see how transparent this NDC administration is going to be. We shall see how accountable this NDC administration is going to be. Already, we hear they've started their own internal fights. It's up to them. It's up to them. It's up to them. Even the appointment they are making so far is like wait for Bakun, Mr. for Bakun, wait for Bakun, Mr. for Bakun. Already they are rendering the president a lame duck already. It is obvious the way the appointment is going. We can see you have to align before you are considered. It is obvious. It is obvious. All the talent, the prominent talent in this chamber, because they have no godfather, they are not being considered. The independent members of parliament who align with the NDC majority, not a single one of them has been considered. Not a single one of them has been considered. Bonnie Bain, Bonnie Bain. This is a true family and friends government. You must be a friend to somebody before your name will go. Why? 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 Are you not all NDCs? Mr. Speaker, the president says that he has so many MPs, he doesn't know what to do with them. It is a reason why so many of them are also not entering this chamber. Because he's rendered them redundant. He has rendered them redundant. There is huge frustration. And he couldn't come into this chamber to assure Parliament that the members of the majority side, we are not talking about us, you, your side. He couldn't assure even the majority of constructive engagement for the purposes of governance. Many are desperate. You see them, they don't know where they are going. Are you going to be on a board? I don't know. Are you going to be a deputy minister? I don't know. Mr. Speaker, how should the MPs go and account to their people? Mr. Speaker, this government offers no hope to its own members. If a member of parliament who is part of a 24-hour economy does not know when resources will come for the constituents, what about the ordinary member of the community? What about the food soldier? This is the state of hopelessness. Ghana for Atuabe Nuomuho. Mr. Speaker, I can only I can only assure Ghanaians that truly, for all we did in terms of social intervention programs, for which they can attest to, they should be assured that 2028 is not far away from today. The ravening clouds shall not long be victorious. They shall not long possess the skies. A day of hope is on its way. And a better government, a government that understood their plight, will come again and to resolve their challenges. Mr. Speaker, without more arrest.
Hope is returning to Ghana. This afternoon, I came across a newspaper, a social media post. What did I read? Professor Stephen Adai, who I recall was very critical of John Dramani Mahama. Today he says that less than 100 days in office, he is the best president since Nkrumah's time. So hope is coming. Ghana is being reset again. The people can see that a good leader is on board and that he will manage and steer the ship of the affairs of state very well. Mr. Speaker, I sat through and listened to my colleagues opposite, and I heard just two things. That the address of the president just constitutes a book of lamentations. And the second thing that I heard them say is that we should compare the figures of 2016 and 2024. In essence, those are the two things that I heard. The day the president delivered the message, I said something, I'm sure many people missed it. I said, and I want to repeat, that when you leave your kraal in the care of the hyena, and you travel and you come back, don't be surprised if all the carcasses are missing. And when that happens, you have nothing to do but to lament. MDC handed over Ghana to the NPP for 8 years. 8 years down the line, when we came back, what did we see? A country broken on all fronts. A country broken on all fronts. Mr. Speaker, the president gave us the statistics. But even before the president came here and gave us the statistics, these statistics were known to ordinary Ghanaians before the elections. And my friends opposite have forgotten that they were warned about these statistics and the implications of these statistics on their electoral fortunes before elections. So let me repeat what the Afrobarometer report before election said about your government. 77% of Ghanaians said that corruption had increased significantly in 2024. This was Afrobarometer, not John Mahama saying. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, analysts put it that we were losing close to $3 billion to corruption, even though we had gone to the IMF for a bailout that was equally $3 billion. So all we needed was not to go to the IMF, but to fix corruption. And that is what Ghanaians voted for in December 2024. Mr. Speaker, even before elections, 71.7% of Ghanaians believe that the president and his officials were corrupt in 2024. This is not John Mahama speaking. It is in the Afrobarometer's report in 2024. 87% of Ghanaians thought the country was headed in the wrong direction in 2024. Was it John Mahama speaking? This was ordinary Ghanaians speaking. And they said at that time that they were also against the e-levy. In 2017, Afrobarometer revealed that only 20% of Ghanaians considered emigrating from Ghana. However, in 2024, 44% of Ghanaians considered leaving Ghana. We were all in this country and we witnessed long queues. If you drove around any embassy in Ghana, you saw long queues of young Ghanaians, highly talented and educated, who were doing everything they could to leave the country. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, 68.6% of Ghanaians rated the country's economic condition as very, very bad. 50% of Ghanaians were unemployed despite actively searching for work. This was as far back as 2022, and it worsened in 2024. And indeed, 48 Ghanaians were beginning to doubt democracy. They believed that democracy was not working for them. So, Speaker, these are the statistics even before John Dramani Mahama came here to brief us on the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, let's get to the economy. In 2016, when John Dramani Mahama was leaving office, $1 was to 4 Ghana cedis. 2024, $1 to 15 Ghana cedis. Some days it even went beyond that. And the cedi had depreciated by over 250%. Mr. Speaker, these are the statistics. Why would President John Dramani Mahama not lament? If you go and read biblical history and understand what the book of Lamentations is, you will understand the need to lament. The book of Lamentation is a collection of poems lamenting over the destruction of Jerusalem. That is what the book of Lamentation is. So when John Dramani Mahama hands over the country to you and in 8 years he comes and sees a near total collapse of the Ghanaian state, definitely he has a right to lament. And we will lament. We will lament because the city has collapsed. We will lament because the cocoa sector has collapsed. We will lament because STC, all those state institutions have collapsed. We will lament because the banking sector has collapsed. We will lament because almost every institution, ECG, has collapsed. Every single state institution is registering a negative growth. Every state institution is highly indebted. When you meet a country in such a condition, why won't you lament? Will it not be right to lament? Mr. Speaker, so there is every basis for us to lament. Mr. Speaker, I heard colleagues opposite talk about the size of government. Let's get back to the statistics. Mr. Speaker, at one point, the NPP government had over 125 ministers. Indeed, 126. And it came down to 86. Mr. Speaker, we are talking about presidential staffers. I recall the reports that came to this House of presidential staffers. In 2021, the presidential staffers were 934. The report came to this House. 934. So far, President John Dramani Mahama has appointed only 30 presidential staffers and advisors. 30 presidential staffers and advisors. Mr. Speaker, let's just go down memory lane and recall the budget allocations to Office of Government Machinery. In 2017, Office of Government Machinery took 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. In 2018, 1.4 billion Ghana cedis. In 2019, 2.8 billion Ghana cedis. In 2020, 2.9 billion Ghana cedis. In 2021, 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. In 2022, 2.7 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, last year, 2024, 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. That is your track record when it comes to appointments, to government expenditure on itself. That is how frightening the figures look. But John Dramani Mahama has assured Ghanaians that fiscal prudence is going to guide him. The resources of Ghanaians will be put to better use, and he has started demonstrating it. He has given us a lean government. He has given us a lean presidential staffers number. And just yesterday, he gave us a lean celebration of the independence anniversary. Mr. Speaker, let me say that the debate about the size of government is not simple political rhetoric. It is essential for us to debate it further, beyond the political class, because cutting the number of the political class will save cost. But it goes beyond that. We need to overhaul the entire civil service, the entire public service, the entire institutions of governance. There are many institutions that are just duplicating the functions of others, and the taxpayer is called upon to pay for that. We recruit many people that do nothing. And indeed, we clog the public services and institutions with so many workers that when they struggle to find work to do, we just create additional layers of bureaucracy that make it impossible for the private sector to function. Mr. Speaker, you may call it akoko nkitikiti, you may call it whatever. But Ghana, with all its potentials, still employs hundreds of millions of dollars worth of poultry into our country. And we have not yet been able to fix that. And he says he will fix it using the grassroots approach, where families are going to be encouraged to get involved in the production of poultry. How is that lamentation? And the youth, the AgriNext program, will give 30,000 youth an opportunity to get involved in agriculture. We will make agriculture fashionable. We will support them, and we will give them jobs. Many leave this country and go to Europe only to end up on farms. Many leave this country and go to America only to end up on farms. That is why we are going to make agriculture attractive, exciting, and, excuse me, sexy, so that young people can participate. And to do this, there's going to be a massive investment in irrigation, And the president also promised farmer service centers in every agricultural district. He gave us a program to unlock Ghana's blue economy, subsidize premixed fuel supply, stop illegal fishing in our waters, and support Ghanaians to fish and construct the infrastructure for fishermen. Mr. Speaker, this is what His Excellency the President presented to us. It wasn't just lamentations. It was an account of how bad our country has become. And then his program for lifting us from where we are and sending us to the promised land. And I believe he will go there. And Professor Stephen Adai has already seen it. He has already proclaimed that the Savior, the Redeemer, the Messiah has come back. And that Ghana will work again. That he will reset Ghana. He will rescue the city. He will arrest the dollar. Unlike those who attempted to arrest the dollar, we couldn't find the dollar. Mr. Speaker, the President gave us a clear program in the transportation and infrastructure sector, where he made commitments to invest in the railway. And he committed to legalize Okada. Mr. Speaker, I am told that the Minister for Transport went to Rwanda to study the workings of Okada. When he arrives, over 300 Okada riders were waiting to receive him at the Kotoka International Airport. Because the Redeemer has come, John Dramani Mahama. Mr. Speaker, more importantly, Mr. Speaker,
honorable members, let's have some order.
More importantly,
honorable members, order. Honorable members, order.
Mr. Speaker, more importantly, where it matters most is a change in our leadership paradigm. That is where it matters most. This country's problem is leadership. Leadership. And that is where President John Dramani Mahama has promised a major paradigm shift. A government that will be inclusive. A government that will promote dialogue. A government that will promote consensus building. Mr. Speaker, even before the budget is brought to this House, he has subjected the national economy to some national dialogue so that consensus can be built around the things that we need to do to transform this country and to do it together. And that is why, even before the budget came here, he calls a national economic dialogue. And the dialogue issued a communique. And in that communique, there is a clear direction that we should take as a country. I use this opportunity and this platform to urge our friends opposite not to boycott such dialogues, but to participate. Because you will participate in paying taxes, and you will participate in benefiting from the taxes. So it is important to participate in the discussions around how this economy should be managed, how we can work together to pull ourselves out of the doldrums to which we find ourselves. Mr. Speaker, the major paradigm shift in governance is what is needed. And I believe that in the last 100 days, even people like Professor Adai Mensah, Stephen Adai has noticed a significant paradigm shift in governance in this country. No one was as critical of John Dramani Mahama as the professor. But in 100 days, he says that No one apart from Nkrumah surpasses the record and performance of John Dramani Mahama in the last 100 days. That is why I am confident that the promise the president made here in this house of a paradigm shift in governance in this country will be implemented. He will hold all his appointees accountable to high standards of good governance, of accountability, of respect for the public purse. Mr. Speaker, the burden then shifts to we who are here in Parliament. And I want to draw your attention to the communique that was issued after the National Economic Dialogue. In that communique, they singled out Parliament as the institution that must build its capacity to supervise the state-owned institutions. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that today the committees will be set up. Today, the committees will be set up. Mr. Speaker, all said and done, I want to conclude on this note that the countries that have been able to pull themselves out of the kind of crisis that we find ourselves have not just done that through fine national policies and programs. One key element that has been present in the rescuing of these nations has been the role of national mobilization. Mr. Speaker, where we find ourselves, we need a total national mobilization. We need to mobilize all available human resources. We need to mobilize all skills, all expertise, and every labor that is available. This is what we need to do. And we need to rally every financial resource to be able to develop our infrastructure, industrialize, and implement social programs that will make the lives of our people better. Mr. Speaker, we need to build consensus, and we need to invite the private sector and build public-private partnerships to be able to achieve that. And there are examples that we can look up to. South Korea mobilized themselves, and today they are an economic giant. Singapore, similarly, mobilized themselves, and today they are a giant economy. Even China, the great leap forward of China, was founded on national mobilization. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to build consensus, we need to work together, and we need to mobilize every resource to be able to pull ourselves out of the condition that we find our economy today. And I extend an invitation to our friends not to boycott the effort, not to run away from the effort, not to impede the effort. Mr. Speaker, I haven't covered all the areas. We haven't even looked at the environment and what happened to the environment. We haven't even discussed Galamsey. But Mr. Speaker, I call on colleagues on the other side to join us in the coming days when the budget is presented, so that we can start resetting Ghana,